Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Decatur-ish Download, DeKalb County's home for nuanced commentary and level-headed hot takes. My name is Dan Wisenhunt. I am the Decatur-ish.com editor and founder. We stream every Thursday on Facebook Live and on our YouTube channel. And the next day, you can listen to it via the App and Media Podcast Network, wherever you listen to your podcast. We got a great show for you today. We've got Verdaillia Turner, who is the president of the Georgia Federation of Teachers. Verdaillia, how are you?
You, and thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you for joining us. We also have Tracy Brisson. Tracy is a former teacher. She also has a Substack dedicated to covering education. Tracy, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me today.
Thank you for joining us. So, this episode is all about the most important topic in DeKalb County, which is the schools and the future of those schools. So, we're going to get right into that in just a second. You're also going to hear tonight from our sponsors, Pastries A Go Go. You'll learn more about them in just a bit. I want to do a quick programming note for everybody. It is going to be really nasty this weekend. There's going to be some rough winter weather. Pay attention to your forecast. Get your safety kit lined up if you haven't done that already. Check on your elderly neighbors. Do all the things you need to do to protect yourself and your family. And we will be providing updates on Decatur-ish.com if the power holds up. If not, you can get it from Atlanta News First. DeKalb County was rocked this week, y'all. We broke the news that former Superintendent Devon Horton was arrested on a domestic violence allegation. Now, if you'll remember, Horton resigned back in October after he was indicted in Illinois on federal charges that were related to his old school district. He was accused of participating in a kickback scheme. But here's the thing. The allegations of financial wrongdoing had already been public before he was even hired, and this latest incident has people questioning the board's judgment all over again. And if you're a board member thinking about running for re-election this year, it's probably not a great time for people to be doing that. Verdaillia, your organization called for board members who voted to hire Horton to consider resigning. Do you still feel that way?
Yes, we do feel that way. We understand that Allison Gavert is not going to run again. We know that Vicky Turner did not run again. I don't think Joyce Morley ever voted for this superintendent, and of course, she did not run again. There are some people who are on that board that did vote that may be running again, and one is my school board member, Mr. DaCosta. And I sent him a note today because I was looking at the website of the CAB that says his election is up December of 27, but it's actually December of 26. We would like for these school board members to either step down, give somebody else a chance, and make sure that our district has folk that we can really believe in.
So nothing has transpired between when you made that statement and now that's made you change your mind on any of that.
Nothing. In fact, we have hardened on our, we really hardened. And we've hardened because we've talked to some people on that board, and they seem to be callous. They don't have to give information. They really don't. But I don't think that all has been revealed. All questions have not been answered. And we're still digging for information. We represent teachers in DeKalb County and paraprofessional personnel, and we get some complaints that are legitimate, some are not legitimate. But this board, at least 4 of them, I don't think one is no longer there, actually had warning, but it was not enough for the PSC to stop them from hiring this superintendent. We questioned them. The state school superintendent rarely says anything about who a person is going to choose, but he was even there. When we represent teachers, I've had a teacher that was great for about 20 years, and that was a district doing a purging of teachers. And he was in college, sophomore, got a ticket for drunk driving, but on his application, he checked he had never been arrested. Well, 20-some years later, he lost his job over that, but he had a straight record all the time. So if you're going to put somebody over a $2.5 billion budget, we have to question. We questioned even why Dr. Tinsley was not retained. They got Dr. Tinsley out of retirement. She was doing a great job. She wanted the job. She had put her application in for the job, and she was very disappointed she didn't get it. We questioned this board since really 2015 up to 2025. We've had 6 superintendents, and it's costing us money. I'm looking at figures right now. I don't think they've disclosed everything that we've asked for. but personalities should not come into our pocketbooks or our children's classrooms on that
We
board.
have we have quite a room for this one. Welcome everyone. If you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and drop a question in the comments. We've got some questions coming in. I see y'all. We're going to get to that in a minute. Tracy, do you agree with Verdaillia on this? Do you think that some of these board members who were involved in hiring Horton should resign?
I don't. The main reason is the Georgia statute. So, we don't have like, if they resign, the governor is not going to appoint them. We're not going to have a special election because the next election is in May, where 3 of them are up for re-election. So what would happen if they resigned is that the remaining board members would choose their replacements. And I'm not sure that would really serve us. So from that point on, it's just difficult for me to have that kind of thought process forward. But I do agree that he never should have been hired. And I have been very vocal about that since the very beginning. And we were told when we were on spring break, and, immediately started Googling him. And, it was very difficult to find anything good. So I really, to this day, don't understand how we ended up with him as our superintendent.
Verdaillia, you alluded to that as well. There's still really not a very clear answer about why he was hired. Did you ever learn anything more about that?
No, I did see Mrs. Pierce at the NAACP fundraiser, and she asked me to step to the side, spoke to me, and asked could she answer any questions. And I asked her, where did Devon Horton come from? And she said she couldn't answer that question.
No.
We don't even know, and we're not privileged to know who was in the top 10. And of course, you don't want to publish that because some people are not going to be hired and they already have jobs. We understand that. But if you're going to hire an agency, Georgia School Board Association, I've talked to them. They did a thorough job in vetting because you could hire other agencies also, and that costs us money every time we do that. Of course, they didn't divulge anything except their procedure. And they did let me know anything that the public brings up or they can find that's substantial, they will let that board know. But they have no control over who the board hires. Years ago, I was on one of the search committees, and I forgot the name of the firm. It was not Georgia School Board Association, and they told us, many groups they brought in and heard from them. But if you want to decide who the superintendent is, you have to be on the board. So this man had a lot of smoke around him, enough smoke to choke. And we don't understand why all of a sudden a guy with that kind of background was brought into our school district, where we have had at least 6 superintendents named since 2015. And that was over a 10-year span.
I think that's very interesting what you said about the Georgia School Board, because, the board released a statement, I believe in November, about how they were hired. And they said in their public statement, which is still on their website, that they had no information about the allegations. Like, it did not show up in media reports, which was just very difficult for anyone to believe who had done a basic Google search. And I'll say for Decatur-ish, the week before they voted, one of their writers wrote up the allegations about the contracts, about him not doing the economic interest report, about disclosing the income, and all of that was in the indictment. So to say they had no idea is just ridiculous.
I do want to just interject one thing, and I clearly the Horton thing has been a debacle. I think we all agree with that. There is a difference between allegations raised in a news story and a federal indictment. And I will say, I'm not taking a position on this. I know what I would have done if I were in their shoes. But we did our due diligence to find out, was Horton ever the target of an indictment? Was he ever given a target letter? And the answer is, I filed a Freedom of Information Act request, and the federal government said, no, we never sent a target letter that this guy was about to be indicted. So I do think just as much of it's an open question about where they came up with Horton, I think it's just as much of an open question in my mind, how much they knew that was actionable. So if somebody makes an allegation against you and you're not indicted, can you deny someone a job over that? I think that's a fair question. I'm
Well,
above my pay grade to answer it, maybe.
at least one of the items was not an allegation, which was for the 4 contracts that were listed in the indictment, he was supposed to disclose them to the board,
Right.
and he did not, and he admitted that. And also, he was supposed to file an economic interest form with the state of Illinois disclosing his work, and he did not do that. Those were both ethical violations. So I completely understand where you're coming from, Dan, about the legal aspect. But when you're making a hiring decision, to Ms. Turner's point, of someone who's going to oversee a $2.2 billion budget, and they are saying, I don't follow the rules for contracts. I don't follow them in my current district. I mean, really, you really have to take that into consideration when you're making the hiring decision.
So either one of you can jump on this. Do you think the board members who voted to hire Horton and renew his contract will face opposition if they run this year?
We'll certainly hope so. The problem is we have staggered elections, a lot of elections, and people are hearing a lot of noise. And the school board is a very important and responsible post. Many citizens just don't vote. I know in DeKalb we have staggered elections. In Atlanta, everybody's at one time when they had staggered elections. We have some, hopefully, solutions and remedies and suggestions for governance on that board. We know once we had super districts, we had 9 posts, and Governor Deal got special legislation done out here, and now we have 7. There's a lot of partisan stuff that goes on in that board. But we're certainly wanting to raise the awareness of the electorate that the same board that asks for certain millage rates and asks for East Plus money is not as responsible as they should be with the money. I've been in DeKalb County all of my life. I mean, all of my life. And I am over 65. And if you make a decent income in DeKalb County, you're going to still pay high taxes, and 2/3 of it goes toward that school district. So citizens, we have to be a whole lot more responsible in terms of getting on that board. We need good people to run for that board so that we can protect our district and have the best district for our kids and families.
We're going to pause real quick and hear from the sponsor of today's show. Did you know that Decatur's favorite breakfast spot is now serving espresso? After 30 years, Pastries A Go-Go has finally added espresso drinks, so you can pair their incredible biscuits and pastries with a really good latte. Pastries A Go-Go, fresh baked, now perfectly brewed. We're going to go back to our guests, and we want to get to some audience questions. So we've had quite a few. A friend of mine, Kai, who I believe is a teacher at Druid Hills High School. Hi, Kai. Good to see you. He said, I'm a teacher at a high school, and I've seen a steady increase this school year in district initiatives. How is the district accounting for the overall impact that these initiatives have on teacher planning and instructional quality? Any of you got a take on that?
Well, how they're accounting for it, all of these different changes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you look at the hierarchy of the district, you have a lot of different posts, and they report back out to the superintendent or somebody that's over them. And sometimes those reports are adequate, sometimes they're not. It's according to who's in that position. And I know Dr. Horton still has a lot of folks in various positions. I don't know how many. But the accountability and teacher input in terms of whether these positions, what they're doing works, is very important. A lot of times teachers' voices are stymied, of course. But that's about as much as I know in terms of that. But we are asking teachers and administrators if programs do not work in initiatives to speak up. And if they feel like they are intimidated, there are different teacher organizations that they can go to where they should be protected.
Tracy, you want to weigh in?
I am a parent of a DeKalb County public school student, so not a teacher. I'll say as a parent, I have definitely seen more mandates than I have ever seen before around curriculum and scheduling and some technology. And some of them I've been in favor of, some I have not. I do think for as of right now, though, I mean, even though he's gone, it's still Dr. Horton's vision that we are all under. I was just doing some research before our call today, and before he came, I might have like the numbers off by one or more, but I think I'm pretty close. Before he came, there were 8 divisions, and when he left, there are 14. So those are all different people who have, to Ms. Turner's point, the competing vision, sometimes duplicative stuff. Some of the ones just never really existed at all beforehand. So I think that that is something Dr. Saus really has to think about. I did watch parts of the retreat they had recently this week with the board members and Dr. Saus. And he did actually mention as part of his presentation, one of his goals is to protect teacher planning. So I do think he's hearing that, just how he would implement on that.
Anybody who's sitting through these long meetings is really doing the Lord's work. So I commend anybody who does that. Let's talk about how we got here, but more importantly, how we can get away from here with the school district. And I'm a parent in this district too, full disclosure. Decatur has actually argued for some changes to the school board structure. We argued that the board chair should be an at-large position, as should the vice chair be, and the framework of that should sort of mirror the county commission, because in DeKalb County, you actually get 2 representatives on the commission. You get your super district commissioner, and you get the commissioner who represents your individual district. So it's kind of nice when you got a problem, you got 2 people you can bug. I envision the board chair and vice chair being a little bit more engaged than your typical board member, being somebody who maybe is paid a little more and is more of a liaison between the admin and staff. But that's my idea. You both have been following this stuff for a while. What changes can be made so we're not hiring another superintendent again in, every 2 to 3 years?
I think you've had my telephone booked and my email hacked, because we agree. We think that there should be an election of that chair and that vice chair, but definitely the chair. That'll take a lot of that politics and those poignant personalities out of clashing and doing a lot of trading off politically as to who's going to rule the roost. This person will have to be responsible for the entire one DeKalb. We even toyed with the idea whether or not we should have staggered elections or all of them at one time. The jury's still out on that, and we're discussing that. But those are some of those changes that we should make. We've asked the delegation to consider something that I picked up from one of the organizations, because I talked to PSC and Georgia School Board Association and the Superintendents Association. You know that school boards are not allowed. Well, they are allowed, but they're not required to even have public hearings when they are hiring these superintendents. Just so happened, but the school board did place a lot of public hearings in different strategic places so people could come. But the public will do its due diligence, especially in a school district our size. So we would like for the board, although when it checks out, when they hire a person anyway, to say these are the things the public or have brought before us that we have found. And we're going to hire the superintendent anyway. Because that's only the way that we can get it acknowledged. They don't have to put it like that, but that's what I gleaned from having all 3 of those conversations with those 3 different agencies.
Tracy, what do you think?
I agree. I moved here from Savannah, Chatham, where they elect the board, and I feel like as they have their own problems there, but there is sort of a different level of functioning because they have at least that one independent person. At the retreat, there was an update on the student assignment planning project. I might not have the acronym STAP.
Right.
And they're planning on closing between 4 to 16 elementary schools, 3 to 5 middle schools, and 1 to 4 high schools. And about 50% of all those schools are going to be in regions 3 and 5. And you have to think back, like obviously there are demographic changes happening in the county, but no one was sort of paying attention on that level. I feel there needs to be something more global looking at all that, who has the power, because that just seems really hard on 2 specific regions, like how you got there.
Tracy, I'm glad you brought up redistricting, and I want to switch gears a little bit on that.
Mhm.
So, that process, which is called the student assignment planning process, is ongoing right now. It started under Devon Horton. It's the first major redistricting we've had in a while. And even though the recommendations are delayed, they are expected this spring. I wonder, given Horton's role in starting that whole process, do you think parents will give these recommendations a fair hearing and find them credible?
I'm not sure. I mean, it is quite obvious we have too much capacity, right? I am not sure that the process they've chosen is the best one. However, when you look at all the different districts who've had to go through this, they've all had challenges. But one thing that's bothered me about it is like how quickly we adopted like SAP, because there's no such thing as SAP. It's something that Devon Horton did in his old district, and then he just took the name and brought it here. And it didn't work there. They did SAP 1 and SAP 2, and then they ended up having to hire an outside consultant to make all those decisions. I wish we were talking about like redistricting in a little different way, and they have like seem to flip a little bit. Like at the retreat now, their first goal is buildings. How many buildings are going to go offline before June? They're going to first decide which buildings they're not going to use, and then also tie it at the same time to boundaries and programs. So I watched the retreat. More than half the board members were completely confused. They felt like that they were flipping how the process was. Now, I have come to some of the meeting, watched some of the meetings, some of the town halls. I purposely chose I did not want to be part of this committee, so I did not apply. But if the board members are confused, I am quite concerned about how we're going to get to the end result.
I will say I've covered education in some form or fashion
Mhm.
for about 20 years, and I've seen plenty of redistricting processes. And I've never seen one where everyone was like, man, that redistricting process went great. I was so happy. It was the best time of my life. It's always emotional and really contentious, and it's because people care about their kids and they care about their schools. Verdaillia, do you have any thoughts on the redistricting process or what that process should look like in school districts?
We're going to have to review where our children are going and where our resources are going with buildings. We're beginning to lose students, and different students are coming in, different neighborhoods are coming up. We have not really watched that plan much, but we need to pay more attention to it. And we need more volunteers and parents. I take my hat off to Tracy for being so actively involved. Parents are really the customers. They really are. So we'll see how it goes.
I will say I I have an interesting experience because my son's a DeKalb County Public School student, and I did all the things that I thought you were supposed to do. Right, I joined the PTA, I ran for the PAC, I was engaged, I asked questions, I volunteered, and despite all of that, I still felt like I never knew what was actually going on until I got the report card and I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like, his report card says one thing, but his milestone says another thing. So, what are we going on? And then when I started digging a little deeper, I found out that all the important stuff was happening behind the scenes. So it is really hard, and I have a lot of sympathy for parents who get engaged in DeKalb County schools because unfortunately it is not as easy as just showing up. I have
No,
learned,
it's not.
really not. Um, let's just talk about the future for a minute because that was the theme of this show is where is DeKalb County right now and where do we go from here? How do we make this thing better? Verdalia, I'll start with you.
Well, we have an interim superintendent, so we're going to have to get through that process, and the board is going to have to decide whether they're going to open up the process or if they're just going to decide it's going to be Dr. Saus. And then we have some board elections coming up in 2 areas. And I'm trying to look at those districts right now, but I know that Allison Gavant, it might be her district. I don't know if it's 2 or 4. And
It's 3.
It's 3? Okay.
Tracy, you know the
Whitney,
districts, don't you?
it's Whitney McGinnis, who has said she's running. Allison Gevertz, who said she's not running, and Dejan DeCasa, who has not said either way.
Yeah, I've texted him, but ever since the fiasco went down with a superintendent that they didn't hire, brought in and didn't hire. Um, he has chosen not to even speak. He didn't live that far from me, and I think he knows who I am, but I can't get answers out of him.
Go
In
by his
fact,
house and wave.
in fact, I live in this district. I might run.
Okay, well, you heard it here first.
I'm just
Yeah,
messing with
break some
everybody right
news.
now. I'm really messing with
Break
everybody.
it. You heard it here first.
No. I'm really messing with everybody. I'm really
Oh,
messing.
okay.
Yeah.
Breaking some news. Real quick, what do y'all think about Dr. Saus? I mean, as a journalist, I love the name, right? Because it has great headline potential. But in all seriousness, what do y'all think? How's he doing?
Hey, Tracy, let me ask you, have we had any media interviews with Dr. Saus?
I have not, and I'm glad you brought that up because I've invited Dr. Saus to be on our podcast several times. Haven't had the chance to schedule that yet. Dr. Saus or your spokesfolks, if you're listening, come on. We'd love to have you on the show. He's done a lot of, he's put a lot of videos out. He's had some town halls with parents. I haven't interacted with the guy one-on-one. Everybody seems to like him. Everybody seems to get along with him. But in DeKalb County Schools, it doesn't really mean anything. It just boils down to who they want the superintendent to be. But what do you think, Tracy?
I served as a member of the Superintendent's Advisory Committee for Exceptional Education. My son received special education services under Dr. Horton, but because it was exceptional education and Dr. Saus was the head, he was always at the committee meetings. So I have, as far as the people I have interacted with at the county level, I have always found him very kind and ethical, and he has a keen interest in students. Like, when I've gone to other meetings and talked to other, district level kind of people, they talk about like the work, their role, that kind of stuff. But he seems really interested in the lives of students and their success. I've had one email interaction with him, and his email response to me was quite incredible. Like, he'd actually read what I wrote, and like, I don't know, he's just really good emailer, I guess. I do know some parents who have some concerns about maybe he hasn't been as detail oriented on some of the special education implementation. But that's their story to tell. I don't have those concerns myself. He did at the retreat give a overview of his goals for the year, and they're a little light. Some of them I appreciated. One thing he said that I never heard everyone in the DeKalb. I was a district administrator in New York City under Michael Bloomberg. So we never did anything right, according to him. We were never celebrated. It was just like, you got to keep going. You got to grind. He brought that level to the Department of Education. So here in DeKalb, whenever I go to a meeting or watch a board meeting, like, everyone is so grateful and thankful and celebrates like the most minute things. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. And he said at the meeting, like, he talked about teacher payroll, and he said, I know everyone works hard, but even one payroll mistake is unacceptable. Like, we have to do better. And I was like, I never heard someone in DeKalb talk that way. Like, usually they just like are like, well, we're working on it. We got 100 more checks out, like when they had the big issue a few years ago. And he said that, and it was really stunning to me in the culture that I've seen exist at the county level. And I'd like to see him take that even further.
Verdaillia, have you had any interactions with Dr. Saus, and what's been your impression?
Yes, I have. And Dr. Saus is very accessible. He's very friendly. He is an educator. He worked out in California. He's had different roles. He's come up through the, he's come up through the ranks. He's a military man. We have a great respect and admiration for him right now, and we don't think he's going to mess that up. But it's a process still. The board is going to have to decide what they're going to do. I would like to see him get more interviews with the press, because I even have media people asking me about that. They said, we understand that you may have a relationship with us. I really don't have a real relationship. We did a lot of background check on him. That's what we did. We haven't found anything. And
Well,
so,
you're off to a good start then.
Yeah, right.
hey, off to a good one. Yes, but we
Yeah.
need to stabilize this district. We really do.
Real quick, and then we'll wrap it up for the night, because I want to respect everyone's time. Real quick, Verdaillia, starting with you, where do we go from here? Where does DeKalb Schools go from here?
Well, I think we continue to educate and inform the electorate and the taxpayers. We continue to push. We're going to definitely have to be really engaged. All of us are busy. We need to find good people with good character that is willing to be trained and listen and learn to serve on that board. I think that we're going to have to watch our tax dollars and watch the budget, which is not an easy thing to do, but it's necessary to do. I hope that this raises more awareness and it keeps people alert and aware that they cannot be apathetic and bystanders. We get what we pay for or what we don't pay for in our time and our resources and our talents.
Amen to that. Tracy?
I agree with all that. I see a strong argument for giving Dr. Saus the job, because we do need stability, and like, he has a level of confidence from people that he seems to have earned. I do think that there's a lot of things they have to do to regain the public's trust after what happened with Dr. Horton. I'd like to see the district really, and Dr. Saus, talk about ethical culture. We've had a number of stories about people that Dr. Horton had brought in with him who still work there, who have had conflicts of interest. I pulled some open records recently. I found at least 3 people that he brought in who have $49,000 contracts, flat fee payment every month. And why $49,000? Because if it's 50, you have to tell the board about it. I want Dr. Saus to say publicly that ends. We're not doing that anymore. My son's going to middle school in a year and a half. If you look at the promise schools, the ones that are failing, it's all our middle schools. And I'm probably speaking for a lot of parents that I think they really need to focus on that. That is where we lose a lot of people in our district. They graduate from elementary, they go private. Sometimes they come back to high school, sometimes they don't. Those would be my big focuses if I was superintendent.
Tracy, Verdaillia, thank you so much for joining us. Stay warm and stay safe this weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is all for tonight. Everybody, again, the weather's going to be real nasty. Please stay safe. Keep warm this weekend. Keep an eye on the weather. Bring your pets inside. Drip your faucets. Protect your plants. And please, please, please check on your elderly neighbors, particularly ones that don't get out as much. Join us again next Thursday at 7 p.m. for another episode of the Decatur-ish Download. Guest to be determined, but I'm pretty sure it will be an interesting discussion. And with that, we hope you all have a great weekend. Bye-bye, everybody.